Welcome to Unit 3, Lesson 3. Here we go with a little bit of homework help. First question has two parts. First answer part A and then part B. Very first thing we want to recognize with this is that this graph is a proportional relationship. So meaning that all of our points pass through 0, 0, which is a very important fact to remember. By understanding these pieces, we can find the constant of proportionality by starting here at 0, 0, following the graph until we find nice integer points. And then we can find some, what we believe to be the slope or the rate of change here. In this case, we see that we are rising right here 150 units by 100 units of run. I can see that same pattern happening here. Rise 150, run 100, rise 150, run 100. I now know that K is 150 divided by 100. And I know that I can simplify that by dividing by a common factor of, let's see here, dividing that by 50. And that tells me that my constant proportionality is 3/2. By working with that constant proportionality 3/2, what I can do with that is I can actually take that information and come down here and put that into my next piece of this. Let's remember that that constant proportionality is 3/2. Take special notice that that right here says y equals, and then we have a blank space, which means don't put y into your answer down here. It's already implemented. All we need to have is the constant of proportionality multiplied by x, and we're done with this one. So now with that question, knowing that our equation is y equals 3/2 of x, what we can do with that is we can go ahead and use that down here. And we can use that with our part B to be able to calculate whether something, or the number of calories or the number of fish. In this case, the grams of fish is x, that's our input. The number of calories is y, is our output. And I can use my equation to represent these pieces. Since this is x right here, multiply that by 3/2 to tell us what y is equal to. Since I'm looking for the x coordinate here, I know that this is the y coordinate, so 2001 is equal to 3/2 of x. Use a little bit of division there, 2001 divided by 3/2. And then finally on the last one, if I'm talking about 1 gram of fish, that's an x coordinate, 3/2. This will equal my y coordinate. Well, 3/2 times 1 is still 3/2, but I know 3/2 is the same thing as 1 5/10. So find those other two values and go ahead and go on to your next one. Problem number 2 is again a two-part question. Part A is going to talk to us about the situation that's given. Part B, we figure out which graph goes with it. Part A, when we're talking about this, students are selling raffle tickets for a school fundraiser. They collect $24 for every 10 raffle tickets they sell. Suppose M is the amount of money the students are collecting. Oh, that's some more important information. M is the money collected, and then R is the number of raffle tickets. Select all the equations that reflect the relationship between M and R. I think it's helpful for us to go ahead and find an equation for this that would represent the situation where we could take the amount of money, and we need to decide, is the amount of money the input, or is the number of raffle tickets the input? Well, I think that you've already decided this one, that we have to have the money, or we have to sell a raffle ticket in order to get money. So the raffle tickets would be our input, or our x coordinates, and our money would be the result of selling raffle tickets. So that would be y. And then I know that my constant of proportionality then would look like this. If the money is 24, that's my y coordinate, x is 10. That means that when I'm talking about this as a constant of proportionality, we're talking about 24/10 or 12/5. Recognizing that, now I can put this into an equation. I know that the amount of raffle tickets, or the amount of money I make, is equal to 12/5 per raffle ticket. I know you're probably pretty tempted to say that that's 2 4/10, but 2 4/10 is not an option here for $2.40. So we have to recognize that this fraction is the fraction that will be represented in our equation. Understanding that we have money is y, we can go ahead and change y to an m. We don't change the 12/5 because that's our same value. And then x, instead of x, we are going to put r. And we see that this equation matches up with this equation. So B is one of our answers. A is not an answer. So what about C and D? Notice that they changed M and R. How would I find the number of raffle tickets based on 12/5 of the money or 5/12 of the money? Take that into consideration and decide which one of C or D is an answer. One of them is correct. Letter E, well, looking at letter E and where that comes from, only difference I see between this one and letter B is the 12/5. And this one looks like it's just been reduced from this one. So letter E would also be one of those situations that would work. Again, pick between C or D, figure out which one of those is going to work the right way. Working our way down to the next problem. Read the problem, select the graph that has M labeled on the vertical axis and R on the horizontal axis, and shows how much money they would raise if they sell 100 tickets. All right, so we need to figure out which one of these would show 100 tickets and the correct value for that 100 tickets. As we look at this, remember that we just talked about M is labeled on the vertical axis. I see R right here on the vertical axis. Graph B is gone. How much money would they sell with 100 tickets? Then we know like this, that our ordered pair has to be 100 and then something. What's 100 times that value? And then we have to decide, is that going to be this graph? Or is that going to be, this graph over here doesn't have that 100. I think that might show you which graph is a better graph to use for this situation. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. We complete the statement below. We're talking about slope triangles. And so if we're going to talk about slope triangles, why don't we draw some slope triangles? We want to know if the slope is greater than 1, less than 1, or equal to 1. Build a slope triangle, so we need to do that. If its vertical length is greater than its horizontal length, remember these are right triangles, so let's maybe call that one 3 and that one 5. Then the slope is what? Is it greater than 1, equal to 1, or less than 1? Well, let's take into consideration that the slope of this is equal to the change in y over the change in x, which means the slope with this should be 5/3. So when we have a slope that, or a slope triangle, where the horizontal length is greater than, the vertical length, the vertical is greater than the horizontal, then we have a slope that is greater than 1. Please go ahead and draw for the other two and decide which one of those are going to be the best option. Problem number 4. Last one requires a little bit of substitution. We need to be able to use our equation that's given to be able to find out if our information, or if these coordinates, these ordered pairs over here, if any of these satisfy our equation, make it true so that those points actually fall on top, that these points over here, A, B, C, or D, if they're actually on that line. Let's take the first one and go ahead and work through as an example, see if this is true. This is our rule right here. So that means to follow the rule, both x and y have to make our equation truly equal to 3/11. So we want to substitute here. Y is -2, x is -16/3, minus 2, and this is supposed to be equal to 3/11. If this is the case, let's go ahead and pull these together and let's decide with this. On the bottom, 16/3 is the same thing as -5 3/10 repeated, minus 2. And I know that -5 3/10 minus 2 is going to be -7 3/10 repeated. And my hope is that that's going to be equal to 3/11. I know that 3/11 is 27/100 repeated because I have done this a few times, but I'm not sure what -2 divided by 7 3/10 repeated is equal to. Hey, it works out. We know this is true, which tells us that A is certainly one of the answers. Go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of these. Substitute, make sure you get the right values in there. So this one right here, we would end up seeing this is 2 divided by 0 minus 2 equals 3/11. Wonder if that's correct. Same thing with down here with these other ones. Letter C would have to be 9/11 divided by 5 minus 2 is equal to 3/11. That question mark just simply means, is it true? And then you can do the same thing for D. Once you're all done, you've selected your answers, make sure you hit submit. Let me know if you have any questions.